Good evening. It is Monday, September 9th, 2024. Welcome to episode 78 of Porterhouse and Teal Live. And we were not on last week. Rebecca had some family business to attend to. She was out of town and I was just home alone. And so my son came down with his son. So it was the three Erics last Monday, and we hung out and we got to ride dirt bikes and we got to just be doing dude stuff. And so we decided last week we wouldn't come on, but I thought we would come on this evening and see if anybody wants to join in, and we'll share a few of our thoughts and kick around some of the things that we've been doing here on our homestead, which as always kind of seems like maybe we're not doing enough sometimes, but that's just I think the way that it goes when you're ambitious and you want to get a lot of things done, but you got to be patient with how those take shape. So, not only what we've been doing here, but just some of the observations that we've had that I think are worth sharing. I'll get into the weekly poll that I threw out about a week or so ago, and throw out some a weekly quote and then clip of the week, as well as like to talk a little bit about tonight's main topic. And I think that I find myself falling into this category a little bit, if you will. But when we insulate ourselves with people that just share our own beliefs, we don't ever expose ourselves to unfamiliar territory. But I think when we do, it opens your eyes a little bit. At least it does to me. And I wanted to share some of my thoughts on what it's like to be in unfamiliar territory, which is where we found ourselves here this past weekend. But this evening, Rebecca, how are you?
I am good. I went out for a run this morning, and I learned something. So it's kind of a good did you know type of thing for you. It's not tonight's did you know, but anyway, a little information that I learned. I saw a happy birthday sign out there. Kind of wondered what it was for. About half a mile down the road, it said California, so I had to look it up. So California became a state in 1850. It became the 31st state.
Wow. Yeah, let's see, in 1850. And it was on today's date, you said?
On today's date, yes, September 9th.
Okay. Yeah, that's kind of an interesting little factoid. And California is one of the more beautiful states out there. There's so much potential, but it's kind of a shame to see where it's going in a lot of the areas in California. And, unfortunately, I think a lot of people have that impression of this state. But, if you're actually here, you'll maybe get a different impression depending on what part of it you happen to visit. But I'm not here to shill for California. I'm just saying, as a native Californian, I have a different perspective because I have traveled a lot of it in my job. I've been up and down this state in just about every county that of the 52, I think it is, counties we have in the state, and just very diverse, very beautiful. Some places are shitholes. Some places are really, really beautiful. So that's a cool little did you know, but yeah. I did not know that.
Well, I also think that we found when we decided to kind of go out and adventure a little bit more, how much beauty is actually in your state that you don't know about. And so this weekend we were in an area that kind of brought back memories for me. So Eric will touch a little bit about that later on, but it was nice to share a meal and think of happy thoughts.
Yeah. Good evening, Dean Mullis and Tim Riley. How are you guys doing this evening? Thanks for joining us. One of the things that we're able to get done around here, which I'm really, really stoked about, and it's something that, every year is something that we have to revisit, but I spoke about this either last episode or the episode before, talking about the importance of having your energy needs squared away. And so we got a couple of cords of wood delivered, and I got those stacked up and in the dry space so that we're we're deep and we're set for winter. Typically around here, we'll burn we're not a real heavy wood usage, but we'll go through a cord and a half every year. And on a heavy year, we'll burn 2 cords. But it isn't something that we use for our primary source, but we primarily use that. I shouldn't say it's our only source, but it is something that we use quite a bit in the wintertime to heat the house. And I always like to try to keep at least a cord in reserve. And so we're sitting fat right now, which is pretty cool.
It's also really sweet because we've been buying from the same gentleman for years now. And so when I call to order wood and I say my name, they're always, oh, and they know instantly who I am. It's really cute. Yeah,
there are a couple of Mexican dudes, and they are some hardworking hombres, man. Let me tell you, I don't know if they're here legally or illegally, and quite honestly, I don't care what they are, what their status is, because anybody that works that hard and is that respectful, they've got my vote, because there's plenty of people here that are documented that ain't worth a shit. But these guys are hardworking dudes, man. We've been buying, like Rebecca said, wood from them for years, and they always are on time. They always deliver a little bit more than what you ask for. And they're just hardworking dudes. They used to do like 500 cords a year delivered, and they cut it all, they stack it all, they split it all. They will stack it on your property if you want to pay that, but I just have them dump it in the garage, and I do the stacking part. But I think he said he's going to sell probably about 150 cords this year, but he's not doing the 500 like he used to. But they are some hardworking hombres. And
they are.
Yeah, I love supporting them, quite honestly. But Hogs 14, what's up, man? Good to see you, dude. Love it. Let's see what else I got going on around here. It's definitely the time of year for us around here to start doing some seed collecting. And it's pretty important from my standpoint to make sure you get the things harvested and then put back the seed you want to have for next year. It's a really good thing to get the genetics that you want from the crops that are performing well on your property. And somehow this year I wound up having a watermelon little patch in my front yard. And if you watched my video from last week, you will have seen that watermelon and where it's growing. And since then, I have harvested a couple of those watermelons, and one of them weighed 33 pounds, the one we just have been eating on for the last few days. And we eat a lot of watermelon around here. Most of it is stuff that we buy from the store. And she's really good at selecting watermelons and getting, good ones that are ripe and stuff. But this watermelon that we cut open the other day, that 33 pounder that was grown here, is probably the best watermelon I have had since I was a child.
Yeah.
And I've grown watermelon here before. They've been good, but nothing like this. Was it amazing?
It was amazing. I mean, it was huge. It was juicy. It had a really good texture. It just had everything. The seeds were not overly huge.
Mm-hmm. And there wasn't that many of the seeds. So I'm collecting as many as we can so we can try to replicate those genetics here on the farm. But when you get a good one, you got to try to save those seeds and make it happen again. So that's definitely what we're doing. Good evening, Laura from Potpourri of Life. And little watching while you're working. So cool. Glad to have you this evening. But I got a lot of stuff right now that I'm going to be pulling seed off of, just sunflower. A lot of the sunflower that I grow here, it tends to just be a bird feeder for me. I don't get really too crazy about trying to do anything with it other than just grabbing seed for it for the next year. And, again, I watch the birds out there every morning in the orchard, and they're just furiously working all of the sunflower that I have growing out there. And that's, again, what it's intended for. I want those birds to come into that space so that they can be there to also feed upon maybe some pest insects and things like that. It's all part of the ecosystem of, putting something that's together that's healthy, that has wildlife coming in that isn't going to be disruptive. I definitely have wildlife that I want to avoid having come into certain spaces, but those are, little creatures that I want to try to encourage. And so I've got sunflower seed to collect and store for next year. And also I've got some sorghum out there that needs to be harvested and stuff like that. So those are all some of the things that I'll be working on as far as trying to put some seed back for next year.
Plus, they're very good at spreading the seed too, just themselves. We have sunflowers popping up in various different places.
Yeah, we've got sunflower and we've got all kinds of different things that show up on the property. And a lot of that stuff comes from wildlife. It comes from birds or other things that have eaten something. And then they come and they put their droppings down, and those droppings are there to basically be a little fertilizer capsule, and it helps to break down the lignins and the cellulose and all of the outer coverings on those seeds. And it's just a perfect little planted thing that winds up being there. Next thing you know, you've got something that you had no idea how it even got there on your property. And it's kind of a cool thing to see. And I like to really try to encourage that when I can. But some things that grow, I don't want, and I want to try to eradicate. But the things that I actually do want that are beneficial, I try to really encourage that. So seed collection is super cool. Yep, you're right, Hogs, man. Nothing like homegrown healthy food. And I think more people are kind of catching on to that to some extent. I know that there's a lot of people that are still blinders on and they're just going along their merry way. But there's been a lot more talk about food choices and eating the right things, because I've been thinking that way for years. And I just, quite honestly, until recently, I haven't been as disciplined as I would have liked to have been, because it's hard when you have those calories that are placed before you that are so convenient, so easy. And then most people, they look at that, oh, it's something that is in the store and it's been regulated or over, that has oversight from the federal government or whatever regulatory agency, and they think it's okay to eat. But a lot of that shit is actually poison. It's actually, it's just low dose poisons that you're putting in your body, that those toxins are accumulating over time. And so the more that you can take somebody else's hand out of your food production and put it back into your own hands, the less people that are touching your food and manipulating with it, the healthier it's going to be. So if you can grow your own food, you're exactly right. There's nothing like it. If you can raise your own animals and then eat those animals, there's nothing like it. I've been making a real conscious effort to try to spread the meat that I'm eating out. I'm not just eating straight beef, or I'm not eating straight pork, or I'm not eating straight fish, but I'm kind of consistently trying to spread that out so that we're getting a good array of nutrition coming in. But when you're relying on stuff that you didn't actually catch or grow, you kind of have to, you're at the whim of, what is the shit I'm actually eating, right?
Yeah. For us, I think it's just the fish that we didn't grow.
Well, the chicken too. We don't raise our own meat birds. So when we do eat poultry or something like that, with the exception of the birds that I'm going to be killing here shortly. But that doesn't meet all of our needs for the year. Now, if I was more concerned about, I didn't really like chicken that much, but if I was a big chicken eater, it would be raising meat birds for sure. But chicken's not a huge thing for me, but we do buy it, from the store. And so you have to make good choices, but growing it your own and raising it your own is the only way to go, man. You're right. Let's see. Yeah, butchering chickens. That's something that I'll be doing here shortly, I guess. We still have 2 roosters. Any of you that have listened to this podcast for any length of time, you've heard us talk before that we've had 2 chickens, and the reason that 2 roosters, and the reason that I kept those 2 around was I just wanted to wait and see which one was going to be enough of an asshole for me to make the decision. Well, that decision's been made now. So probably in the next day or so, he's going to be going into the cone, or he's going to be hanging upside down somewhere underneath a tree. Because no sense in having 2 roosters, and particularly not one that's actually going to, be taking swipes at her or whatnot. He won't take swipes at me. He knows better, but he's kind of done that with her on occasion. And there's no sense in it, quite honestly. So I'm I'll probably butcher him, and there'll be some other chickens that we wind up processing soon too, soon as their egg production falls off. But right now we're still getting how many eggs a day, Rebecca? We're averaging?
We are getting anywhere from 23 to 27 eggs.
And that's with like 30 hens, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So they're still pretty well in full production. And I've got some 2-year-old birds. There's some 22 birds that are going to be getting butchered this year. So as soon as they start to go into the molt, I'll process those out along with, any others that might need to go as well. And then we'll bring in a new batch. And that's just kind of the way we run it here, just to keep the egg production high, because, we do sell eggs off the property. And this week we're selling how many eggs this week? We've got, and this is just with 2 people. So
this week it'll be a total of 13 dozen eggs that we've sold.
Yeah. And we could sell more. We're giving eggs away. We've got so many damn eggs, So, but yeah, we're selling 13 this week, and that just kind of helps to offset the cost of having chickens. Essentially, our egg sales pays for the feed. So we're eating eggs for free. We're eating chicken for free, and it's just the time and effort of going out there and managing the space. But, there's multifunctionality to our chicken space as well, because we're making compost out of there, which is very, very effective and beneficial. And, like you said, raising your own food, there's nothing like it. Mm-hmm. I don't have to worry about where my eggs are getting fed and what they're getting fed and how they're being, raised and all that. So that's a good thing to know.
Yeah. The other night, the rooster actually, I saw him spread his wings and just start to dart. And I yelled at him at the top of and you see the wings go down.
Yeah. 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 Let's see. Laura says, what does Laura got to say? Popery Life says, we processed all of our birds as we were spending time looking for new property. I have to be honest, it's nice not to have the responsibility for a short time. Oh, sure. Absolutely. I've thought about that. Just because there's things that we'd like to do, man. There's places that we would like to go. I'd actually like to go and travel a little bit sometimes and just get the motorhome and her and I go someplace for a couple of weeks and Ellie Mae for a couple of weeks and just not be homesteaders. I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to sit here and say, oh yeah, this is something I'm tied to and I love it. It's fucking work, man, but it's worth it. It's worth it. But there are times, like you say, it's nice not having that responsibility and going and taking that off your plate. But it is nice having the ability to have your own animals, have your own space, and manage that, And so I suppose if we didn't have any other things that we had interests in doing, and this was our only focus, was just being homesteaders, which we could totally do that. We're retired, right? We could just stay around here and just be full-time homesteaders and make content. But there's other things that I would actually like to do with her while we still have some years left. When you start looking at, the windows of your life and the fact that they might be closing at some point, right? There's things you would like to do and you don't want to just saddle yourself with one thing. So I fully understand what you're saying about not having that responsibility. And we've already been down that road before, where we kind of backed out of things and we did travel and not have that responsibility. But yeah, I totally get it. Let's see here. Hogs 14 says, or worry about the food recalls. Every day we have one. Yeah, there's usually something out there, right? Listeria or some kind of foodborne thing that they need to recall because of this, or bird flu or some damn thing, something's been tainted. And so, I would like to say that we're 100% doing our own thing here, but we're not. And I don't think that there's many people that are. We try to do the best we can with the things that matter the most to us and eliminate those things. One of the things that we've actually done, I'll tell you, man, is we've eliminated a lot of things that we used to think we needed. And then when she starts cooking a different way and making things in a different way, we realize, man, this is actually better. This is better than like mayonnaise or whatever. I mean, what do you make for mayonnaise and whatnot?
Well, I don't use mayonnaise anymore, but I make this avocado dressing. And then it's more, I make it more of a spread. Let me put it that way. So you're supposed to add water. I leave the water out, kind of add a little lime and mix it up. And then I use it as a spread.
Well, what are you putting in with avocados? I mean, is it just mashed avocados or are you putting it
No,
with
it's not mashed avocados. It is mashed avocados, but it's got garlic in it. And then the dressing that I make, which is a balsamic dressing, I put a little of that in. That's kind of what I substitute for the water.
Yeah.
And cilantro. And you blend it up until it's creamy. And then it makes a wonderful spread. We also used it for a dip. We had chicken strips and used it for a dip. That was really good.
Yeah. Potpourri of Life says, I have tons all water glassed and now some extra meat on hand. Good on you. That's excellent. That is excellent. So you had a bunch of, I think you had some Australorps and Buff Orpingtons, right? If I'm not mistaken. So that's good. You decided to lighten the load. Nothing wrong with that. I wanted to mention this too, and this isn't anything that I'm affiliated with. Oh yeah, Laura says, and she had Barred Rock as well. So yeah, some good breeds there. I wanted to mention this because I came home and as I'm mowing the lawns this morning, I happened to notice this couple of big mounds outside of my hugel mound, which indicated to me that I had a gopher at hand. And yeah, gophers are kind of weird. Sometimes they'll lay low for a while and they might be in an area in a burrow, and then they start to excavate and push dirt out. They may already be there. And you think you've got eradicated them, but they're just laying low. Or what happens a lot of times is they do travel. And so they will at nighttime come and get out of their hole and they'll migrate and then they'll burrow in. We've seen them do it in the daytime. So, they're doing it at nighttime. And I thought I'd mention this only in the context that I know that there's a lot of people out there that may have issues with gophers. And some people like all wildlife and they don't want to hurt a thing, and that's fine. But that's not how it works on my property. And a lot of people that have lawns or gardens or things that are problematic, when you have a gopher at hand, they're very destructive little animals and they multiply and they can cover a lot of ground and do a lot of damage. And so one of the things that I use, it's called the Gopher Hawk. It's a gopher. It's just a cylindrical tube looking thing with a spring on it. And you set the spring and you put it in the hole and set the spring. And I'm not affiliated in any respect with this brand. It's not like I'm getting a kickback on this deal, but I just thought I'd mention it in the context of helping out people who may have that issue, because I have made a number of different videos on trapping gophers and trapping other little rodents and things like that. And this is a very, very effective tool. I set 4 traps out there today. And the way that I do it is I set multiple traps in problem areas. So, they're kind of an expensive trap, relatively speaking. You wouldn't think something that's a tube with a spring on it would be $30, but that's about what they run, which isn't like, going to break most people's bank. But I like to run multiples so that when I have problem areas, I can target several different runs, because a lot of times you start probing around and you realize, well, there's a run going this way and there's a run going this way or whatever. And so I'll set, 3 to 4 traps in an area around a mound, and I usually pull them out that same day. So the one that showed himself to me this morning, or I noticed this morning, I set the trap and within a couple of hours I'd nabbed them. So again, that happens constantly around here. It's just very effective. And that was really my only point to that. But if you're wanting to know more about it or whatever, reach out, or just go check out I think it's my trapping playlist on the channel. And I've got a number of different videos in there on the gopher hawk. So anything you want to say about the gopher hawk? Because I know you're a big gopher trapper, Rebecca.
I'm not, but I do know that there's one out there laying on my sidewalk.
Yeah, I wonder how he got there.
I have no idea. I was going to ask you. I thought maybe you dropped him.
Mm-mm.
He's pretty gross.
Yeah.
I do want to say that if anybody out there would like to see Eric in, he calls them butterfly wings. I call them fairy wings. You need to watch his latest video.
Well, I haven't put it together yet. It might be this coming week's video. I'm going to be putting together a video. It's not a homesteading video or whatever, but it's kind of on the another kind of a running type of a thing, right? So if you're interested, cool, check it out. If you're not, just keep moving on. But
it's worth seeing him in fairy wings.
Yeah, it might be. I don't know. I don't think they're fairy wings. I drank a couple Red Bulls. They gave me wings, man.
Yes.
Let's see. Laura says that she actually purchased a few, haven't needed to use them yet. Good to hear of the review. Yeah, it just takes a little bit of practice to kind of like know how to read the mound itself, and they don't all present the same. It's just different. Soil's different, and then they push different. And but you play around. Make sure you get the probe. I would definitely recommend buying the kit. So the kit is about $5 more. So you can get just the single trap for $30, at least in my area. It might be more expensive elsewhere. Or you can buy the probe kit with a single trap, and that's going to be like $5 more for $35. Totally worth it. Don't just think I'm going to save $5 and then get yourself a piece of rebar and start, doing it yourself. It's a very useful little probe kit. It's got a probe, and then it's got a little spike that helps to wallow out the hole. And then they kind of nest together, and they're integrated, just as one. So definitely worth the extra $5. Let's see here. I wanted to mention that Rebecca got her car back finally. And
finally.
Yeah, it was almost a month, man, in between the time she initially sent it in and then the additional repairs that needed to occur after, it had a second issue. And so I'll just briefly mention this, that, anybody that maybe didn't catch last time we were on, but we were talking about how I was able to essentially save $4,000 by utilizing a specific agency as a bargaining chip for the repair shop, and they don't want to have to deal with that entity. And so our claim was probably justified, and they knew that. And so they just opted to do all the work at their expense rather than ours, saving us $4,000, which had you not really known about that, you may have been going down a different road and a bunch of hassle. So again, if you want to know more about that, listen to the last episode or whatever about the full story on that. But she got her car back, which is super cool. Everything looks really cool. We got the printout of all of the things that they did. They basically replaced they replaced the head because the head was damaged, and the entire top end of the engine was rebuilt and replaced at no cost to us. We got this itemized list of all of the work that was performed, and each of it was 0, 0, 0, 0, right? Mm. And so I think the takeaway on this deal for me is it's nice to know what your levers of control are. So having that knowledge about the bar or some form of consumer affairs type agency that's going to be able to assist you in this. And then the second takeaway is that I would always much rather, and we generally try to spend the money, and obviously economics is, personal choice, but we'll spend more money rather than not going to somebody who's reputable, rather than saying, hey, I'm going to save a few bucks and go to Larry at the gas station down at the corner to have him rebuild the top end of my rig, or to do some thing that he's not going to maybe even be in business a year from now, or he's some shady deal, but this is it's a reputable car dealership. They've been in business for 50 years. And, that's just the reason why we do it that way. I think it pays dividends to go and spend a little bit extra money. That's just our personal choice, but I thought I'd mention that.
Well, and unbeknownst to them and us, they got to see us yet another time. I was taking my grandson home and I thought, what the heck is that noise?
Right after we picked the car
Right
up.
after we picked it up, that something was rattling and just making this noise. I called to make sure he was still kind of close by, and we met back up at the dealer, and the guy who was dealing with us, I mean, we didn't even get to his office. He walked out the door.
Yeah.
And met us.
Yeah, no, he actually, I went in and spoke to him and asked him to come out, but all it was a bolt, a singular bolt that they failed to tighten in putting the thing back together, which they should have caught, but they didn't. It was an oversight on the mechanic's part, and he was super apologetic. Oh, it'll never happen again. I'm sorry, because he's probably going to get his ass chewed, right? But yeah, it was just the down tube coming out of the turbo where it clamps on and is held. It was just rattling because he didn't tighten it up, torqued a little bolt or whatever. So got that handled. But I actually did, Rebecca, I didn't tell you this, but I actually went in after you left because I wanted to go in and introduce myself in person since I spoke to this guy on the phone. I wanted to go in and face-to-face introduce myself and thank him on behalf of both of us for resolving this in this way. And I think that they appreciate hearing something like that as well. And I asked him to take that to his boss too. And so, I don't expect something for nothing, but I expect to be treated right as a consumer. And I'm not going to be fucking walked over or expected to pay something I'm not expected, to pay.
Well, and he did do a follow-up text that just came in today, wanting to make sure that I was completely satisfied with the work of my car. So that was really nice. Yeah,
we do that with our plumbers. We do that with, when we've had our solar system put in or whatever. Yeah, I could have went with a much cheaper place, and there's a lot of dudes out there that are doing some shaky work. We to save some money, but this places we deal with, man, they've been in business for a long time, and that really means something in my book. But anyhow, let's get to the quote of the week. And why don't you tell me, Rebecca, if you think this is a liberal or conservative? The quote goes as such: "The pioneers of a warless world are the young men and women who refuse military service." Hello.
I know. I'm going to say conservative.
Okay.
I had to rethink in my head what it was that you said. So I'm not 100%, but that's okay. I'm just going to go with that. Okay. Conservative.
Yeah. I don't know. I would probably say that it's not, but yeah, Hogs jumps in and says that it's a liberal. And I think you'd probably be pretty correct in that, man. Because who that quote came from was Albert Einstein. And I'll read this about Albert Einstein because maybe people just know him as this genius guy with wacky hair that, people talk about in very glowing terms. But this is what it says about Albert Einstein. It says he was known for his strong political views, though he wasn't affiliated with a specific political party. He was a socialist and believed in the principles of socialism, advocating for economic and social equality. He expressed his views in a 1949 article titled "Why Socialism?" All of those things to me sound pretty liberal, right? You've got basically social justice and economic equality. Basically everybody's on the same page, right? Being a socialist. And that's right in line with the modern day Democrat Party. The left wasn't always that way with the Democrat Party, but today that seems to be the side that I would say, yes, they're very left-wing or liberal, leftist. The second part to this says Einstein was also a pacifist and a humanitarian. He supported global federalism and world law, believing that cooperation among nations was essential to prevent war. Additionally, he was an advocate for civil rights and was actively involved in the civil rights movement in the United States. So I don't think there's anything wrong with being somebody who's a pacifist per se, right? I mean, like, I don't think you need to be somebody who's completely like aggressive, but you need to be able to defend your own positions, not being a pacifist from the standpoint of just rolling over and letting people walk over you. Being a humanitarian, I think that there's value in that as well. Global federalism and world law, not so much, right? That would be fantastic if man wasn't flawed and man could not be greedy and take advantage of others. But that's why we have borders, and that's why we have distinct and separate cultures and distinct and separate states and countries and everything. Everybody wants their own space and their own territory to rule how they want to rule it. And if you had one like global entity overseeing that, it would be a fucking disaster. It just clearly would. It's never been that man has been permitted to do the right thing left unchecked with that kind of power. So that would be a total disaster. But I do agree that it is essential that nations work together to prevent war. But you can see how that doesn't work in our own country, where they're more quick, at least with this current administration, to go and to pull the trigger of the iron fist of war rather than saying, hey, let's sit down and be men and do the right thing for the world, because we have the majority of the stockpile of nuclear weapons, but we're antagonizing each other over bullshit stuff. And that's a shame, right? Mm-hmm. But anyhow, I agree with that. And I agree with, being advocate for civil rights. I think everybody is actually born with those rights. They're, I mean, you shouldn't have to like advocate for that, because everybody's born with those inalienable, can I say it?
No.
Inalienable rights at birth. And those don't come from government. It's just what we're born with. So, yeah, interesting. Albert Einstein. Laura says liberal as well. Yeah, pretty liberal.
Yeah.
So,
but you throw things out there that kind of are confusing. So I just jumped to one side thinking, all right.
Yeah, well, you got a 50-50 shot.
That's right.
Yeah, so
I was wrong. Like half the time.
Well, there you go. It's a 50-50 shot. It's all good. It's not like this is going to fail you. Not going to fail the test. Okay. Let's jump into the weekly poll. And this is something I put out there a couple of weeks ago. And I asked, what was your biggest challenge in your homesteading journey? And I had 165 people that responded. And the 5 choices that I threw out there were as follows: weather, neighbors, soil quality, time management, and financial constraints. And not surprising to me, probably not surprising to many, because this is it was high on the list for the top 2. But 48%, nearly half, thought financial constraints was their biggest concern. Following with time management, 1 in 4, 25%, felt that time management was their biggest challenge. And down the line, we had soil quality at 10%, and we had neighbors also tied at 10%. And lastly, 7%, weather was the issue. And so some of those things are actually controllable. A lot of them are controllable. Time management, that's a personal thing. You have every ability to manage your own time. We all have the same number of hours in a day. How do you want to spend it? And what's your priorities? And it's just a refocusing and shifting of that. So that's something completely within your control. Most of the time, you could say the same thing about financial constraints. Most of the financial problems that people have are of their own doing, in a sense. Now, I get it. You may have something that comes out from external, but there's probably a reason why you put yourself there too, for that to happen. So I don't know. Those are some things that are controllable. And soil quality, that's actually controllable too, if you do the right, your shopping. right? If you buy a piece of land that's sitting on a rock, whose fault was that? I guess yours, right? I don't know. That's controllable. Neighbors, that's somewhat controllable, wouldn't you say? I mean, you could get something that doesn't have any neighbors around you, and that's like pretty completely controllable.
Until they move in.
Well, I'm just saying, like, if you had 150 acres and a really long ass driveway and nobody sees your property and nobody's going to look at your house, neighbors aren't really a concern, other than if they're doing something, on your periphery that's a problem for you. So yeah, that's somewhat controllable. And weather, that's probably the one that's least controllable. Although you can move to climates where, it's more easily growing things. If you move to Minnesota, you're going to have a short growing season. If you live up in Canada, your growing season's shorter. You're going to deal with harsher conditions. So depending on where you decide to move, but yeah, that's an interesting breakdown, but it's not really surprising to me, I would say. Let's see. Hog said time was his. Yeah, time management. I think that's something that we all struggle with, man. I guess I'm just really fortunate now because I do have so much more time, not having to get up and go work for the man or get up and, do the thing. I can manage my time more effectively on my own terms. But even when I did have to do those things, you still have to figure out what's most important and just try to juggle it all. Time is something we're all fighting with, right?
Yeah, it may not be to the quality that you'd like, though.
What's that?
If you're fighting with time management, if you've got a job and you're trying to homestead and whatnot, it may not be to the highest of quality that you would hope.
You mean what you're doing is not going to be as high of quality? I don't understand what you mean.
Well, take for when you were working, you're gone for 72 hours and you come home, the quality of your homesteading or working out in there is not going to be the same as if you're retired and you've got the time.
That's why I drink a lot more.
Yes.
I was way stressed out, and that was my excuse. That's a total excuse, guys. I didn't need to do that. I just used that as a crutch. And I told myself I'm fucking stressed out, so I drink more. And so now I'm not stressed and I don't drink at all. So how cool is that? Live and learn. Live and learn. Yeah, well, I had 4 days off. When I was working in Southern California, I used to drive 510 miles one way to get to work. I'd drive down, I'd do my 72 hours, and then I'd turn around and drive 510 miles back home. That left 2 days to do anything around the house, which is fine. That's what most people have, right? That work a 5-day work week. You have 2 days to mow the lawn and to do whatever and watch football or whatever you do on your 2 days. But I had 2 days to homestead, and then 2 days were on the road, essentially shot. So that's why I drank.
Not exactly like a 5-day work, because you didn't come home at night. So you were in and you were gone for 5 days.
I'm saying the people that work a 5-day work week, right? Most people work a banker's hours. They work 9 to 5, whatever, 5 days a week. I didn't have that. I had 72 hours and, I had 2 days essentially to do it, but whatever. Hog says 40 hours plus a week and then trying to homestead. It's tough. Yeah. Yeah. I can totally see, man. I guess it depends on how much you're biting off and what you're trying to get accomplished and how much time you envision actually making those things take shape, because that's what I talk about a lot, is just trying to incrementally be a little bit better. And then, as 6 months or a year go by, you look back and you go, wow, there's a lot I got done. But, I think that's the challenge that I kind of fell into when I first moved here, because I had so many things I wanted to get done. I was just cracking like you couldn't believe. And it was just, I was just constantly going. And that has an effect, it has effect on your production, but it also has effect on everything in your life, your stress levels and your health and everything, so, but yeah, 40 hours a week, 40 hours plus, and then trying to homestead, man, there's a lot of people in that boat, man. And you're definitely not alone. Definitely not alone. Well, cool. I thought I'd jump into kind of the main topic tonight, if you will. I mentioned that. I guess I mentioned we were gone here in this last couple of days. We took a little jaunt up to Oregon, and I was up there as a volunteer for a race that I ran last year, the Pine to Palm 100 mile, and it was kind of cool, man, because I was course sweeping, and what course sweeping is you are responsible for ensuring that no runners are left out on the course. So you're bringing up the rear, basically, with the slowest runner through that section. And are you leaving?
I will be right back.
Okay. You're bringing up the slowest runner. You're removing all of the course markings. So you're bringing down all the ribbons and things, the flags and stuff that help people navigate on the course. And then, if there's any inadvertent trash that is dropped or something, you're just being the last person that comes through that section and being responsible for providing that to the race director. And so I had from the last section, which was mile 80 to mile 100, where I was going to be course sweeping. And so by that time in the race, you're dealing with the people that are absolutely feeling the worst. They've been out there for 80 miles. And they've got 20 miles to complete. So these people aren't moving so fast, right? And so I happened to be with this one girl for the most part of the day. She was at the rear. And then right about 7 miles from the finish, I wind up catching up to this other person who was walking. And I didn't know it at the time, but shortly after we kind of started talking, he was last place at that point, and I'm with him. And he's like, yeah, I'm from Sonoma. And I said, really? I said, man, that's kind of where I'm from. I'm from Sonoma Valley. I grew up in, I told him the town, which is just north of Sonoma. And he's like, oh, really? Wow. No kidding. And so we kind of hit it off and we started talking. And I had heard of this guy before because I'd seen his name and stuff. So he wasn't completely unknown to me. I just didn't know. I'd never met him, And so as we're walking, he starts bringing up some stuff about politics. And I wasn't sure which direction this was going, but he basically said, hey, because I was talking, I said, it's a shame how the town that I grew up in has changed so much. And, back then it was rural. You could go to town. It was country. I used to ride horses to town, and it was just a different vibe. And I said, now it's like the Bay Area has moved north, and it's this exclusive little thing. And it just has a different feel, and it's just not the same. And that's one of the reasons why I left that county, not only aside from the fact that it's super expensive to live there and we couldn't afford to buy property because all of that money from the Bay Area came north, but it's just a different vibe, a little bit more left. And I didn't really point out that to him, but that's what I was just saying. And he starts going into how he's a veteran, and he says, yeah, when I was during COVID, he said I had put up my American flag, and there was people that came up to me actually and said, hey man, should you even be putting that up right now? Like with all that's going on? Essentially insinuating that, to show support for being an American was inappropriate to these people, because showing that support meant you were aligned with the right or aligned with Trump. And so, that's kind of where the conversation kicked off, and we started talking about some further things. And it was just kind of an interesting observation that I made. But as I'm descending down into the finish line with him, we're about 2 miles out, and we come out of the forest, we come out of the mountains as we're descending down this, and we hit the pavement. And it was just like, it was very striking to me, because I'm walking through these neighborhoods of these homes that are, they're just very affluent. It's, you can tell the type of people that live in these homes just by looking at the homes themselves. And then another thing that you noticed, or at least I noticed, and it drew that parallel for me because of what he was saying about the American flag. But one thing I did see a lot of, there was a lot of signs that said Harris and Walls. There was a lot of signs that said Black Lives Matter. There was a few rainbow flags that I saw on people's front lawns. And one thing I didn't see was any American flags. And so it kind of told me like the clientele in that area, who they are essentially. And one of the things that struck me, what I started thinking about is it was almost like those people they're living in an HOA without any written rules, but it's just assumed. It's just assumed that if you live in one of those places, that you vote a certain way, you think a certain way, and by God, you don't display or talk a different way. Because if you do, you might just be looked at in a way that doesn't comport with being a good neighbor. And I don't know. I just found that to be very, very interesting. And it just drew that parallel for what he was actually saying about the town that I grew up in and that I knew that was a certain way. And now it's a different way, where you see a lot of upscale people living there. They are living a fine life, but you don't live a different life. And one of the things that he said to me, he said, it would just be nice if there was like 50%, of the opposing views in that area that were openly discussed, but it's not,
Yeah. Well, one of the things that I was sharing with Eric as he had finished sweeping and came in, where I was parked, there was the car next to me was a grandmother was bringing her grandchildren back to their parents. And she was talking about, we went to the park and we did this and we had ice cream and everything else. But tonight there's going to be a transgender parade if you want to bring the kids down to that. And there's going to be a gay pride, something or other, if you want to bring them. And here's the kids, but I'm going to run back into town and buy a rainbow flag that I saw. Do you want me to get you one too? And that was an eye opener.
What did the lady say?
Her children, the parents of the small kids, were just like, they didn't really have a whole lot to say. They were like, oh, okay. But it just seems so inappropriate to pull those small children into that.
Yeah. I guess that's kind of the title for this is it should come as no surprise. And the reason why I say that is because we all live in our own little bubbles, right? We all live in our own little enclaves of people we surround ourselves with that have our own similar views, and we never get an opportunity to actually experience that which is outside, which we're comfortable with. And so I suppose what I would encourage people to do is to try to go to some places like this, and just observe. Because let me tell you something, Ashland, Oregon is a very nice little town. I like Ashland, Oregon. It's a nice place. If I was to go and I wanted to take her out for lunch, or I wanted to take her out and we could get a coffee and sit out and feel completely non-threatened and just be tourists, put on our fucking Bermuda shorts and our flip-flops and walk around in their sun and lick our ice cream cone.
I want to see that. With your fairy wings.
With my fairy wings. See, here she goes with this. But, it's a nice place, man. It's a nice little town. It actually reminds me of the opposite of that, the polar opposite, where you've got the conservative side and you've got something like an Ashland, Oregon, is Sheridan, Wyoming. Sheridan, Wyoming was badass, man. It was so Americana, so clean, so it was unique. It had its own flavor with regard to the shops that were there. There were local shops, and it was just a nice place you could go and you could walk and totally feel safe and walk around. And I know that there's many, many places in this country that are like that. I haven't been everywhere, but I've been enough places to see this dichotomy of the two cultures that never really mesh. And so when I say it should come as no surprise, it really should come as no surprise for people to know that there's going to be millions of people that are going to vote for Kamala Harris. Because I've gone down to some of these places and they have no problem with displaying their flags, with no problem displaying their political banners. You're not going to see that so much in your town. You're going to see dudes driving around in fucking pickup trucks with Trump signs, and you're going to be watching the things you're going to see, and you're going to see things on your algorithm that you look at that they're going to be feeding you, but they're feeding the opposite to the other side. And they see all of the people that are, oh, Kamala, yay. There are fucking millions of people that are going to vote for her. So it should come as no surprise to you what's taking place right now. I understand, and I'm not certain of this, but I think there's a debate tonight. Is it tonight or?
I think it's tomorrow night.
Okay, whatever. I mean, I just was at the gym today and I'm looking at all the screens and it's, they're talking about the upcoming debate. And I know they're going to be this week. And so all of that's going to take place soon. So it should come as no surprise that people would vote for, Kamala. It actually is a little bewildering when you really deeply think about it. It's bewildering only in the sense that these people are not, they're not uneducated and they're not stupid. The people that live in these liberal enclaves and drive their Priuses and, put the rainbow flag and black flag. They're not uneducated, stupid people, but you have to wonder, how do they not see the effects of the policies in which they support? Right? Because everybody here that will listen to this knows of San Francisco. But there are nice places actually in San Francisco. What you hear about is you hear about the feces on the street and the drug addicts and the junkies and people leaving this state. That's what you hear about California. But as I said earlier, there's beautiful places here that are actually quite normal. And it's interesting. Ashland is just like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
San Francisco in many areas is just like that. But what they do is they live above it. So they live in places like Nob Hill, where the exclusivity is, and they look down on all the riffraff down in the cities from the policies that they support and they vote for creates. So we have the influx of illegal immigration. We have an increase in crime. We have a rising, debt burden. People's lives aren't generally getting better with all of the programs that they've implemented. And so they have to be seeing this. So, it's just interesting to me.
It's amazing how, I want to say blinders, but just, they don't see it because they drive past it so many times.
Yeah. It's like
that it's just get in your car, you drive past it. It's just a everyday occurrence, and you get up in your house and you're safe.
All of Marin County. Marin County is the county just north of San Francisco, if you're unfamiliar. Very affluent, very expensive, very desired place to live. As soon as you cross the Golden Gate Bridge, you're into Marin County. Sausalito, Tiburon, Mill Valley, and on and on and on.
Corte Madera.
It's
San Rafael.
Yeah, it's just, and it's very expensive, very exclusive. And those places you can go, and it's just so nice. You can walk outside with your wife, with your husband, and you feel safe at night. You can go to shops, you can go to nice places to eat, but just down the road, the policies in which they support are making it, difficult for everybody else who lives in a place. I mean, it's not like that in our town, guys. Used to be that way, but it's not like that anymore. We definitely don't go outside at night. Right?
Not unless we have to.
Right. So I don't know. It's just an interesting thing, man. Interesting dichotomy. You want to add to anything about that, or you done talking?
Oh, just you feel unsafe. It's the street creatures that, we talk about that come out and are just roaming the town.
Yeah.
It's like they take over the whole entire town.
At nighttime they do. In fact, they're out in the daytime as well, but whatever. But anyhow, it was nice to get a chance to meet that guy. It's neat to reminisce and talk about, the good times as we recall them we both grew up in that valley. So it was kind of cool to meet him. And I'm actually going to reach out to him to see if I can get some more information from him. I'd like to put together kind of a video for this next week. And, he's somebody who's pretty accomplished in the space. So I wanted to pay homage to that. And maybe that's what I'll do for next week's video. I don't know. We'll see. I will say the video that I made on the mouse bucket is my top performing video of all times. How cool is that? 15-second video that I didn't put any thought to has made more money and had more success than any video I've ever fucking put time into. So pretty cool. Pretty cool how that works, guys. Just putting old bullshit up on YouTube, and you too might be a content creator, right?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Hey, so one of the things that was brought to my attention, and I was unaware of it last time we were on, I think it might have been Hogs that mentioned it, and I can't remember who else had mentioned this, but they're talking about this program for $150,000 for illegal aliens. And that was quite the buzz in the last, I guess, week or so, because rightfully so, that's not going to be a very popular initiative, I wouldn't think, Americans are struggling as it is. And then to suggest that people are here illegally are going to get $150,000 for home loans is not a real, popular thing. So it should come as no surprise that got shot down. But if you're unfamiliar with it, just listen to this. And this is essentially what this program was designed to do.
Senate passes a bill giving up to $150,000 to first-time homebuyers, whether you're a citizen or a legal immigrant. What does this mean? First, they originally launched this program in 2023. They funded approximately $300 million, which ran out within 11 days. And they were getting a lot of pressure to do it again. So this time they did, except the big difference, you can also apply if you're an illegal immigrant. How it works: you can get your entire down payment from the state, up to $150,000. And you have to pay it back when you sell your home, which will be about 20% of all of the appreciation. So the state does stand to make a good amount of money on this program. The problem's here. On the real estate front, we are in a housing crisis. There's just not enough housing here. So what this bill does is adds demand without adding supply. So they may think that they're making it easier for people to afford homes, but this is only going to drive real estate prices up. From a price standpoint, this is like putting gasoline on a fire. The other part, let's just consider you think this program is a good idea. Take the financial side and the inflationary aspect out of this. Programs like this, in my perspective, should be for citizens only, because now this is one more incentive for people to come illegally. And what does that say to everyone else? What does that say to the American who was born here that may want help buying a home, or the immigrant who came legally? You're basically saying that it doesn't matter if you break the law, we will help you buy a house here. So I think this program, considering we're giving them the benefit of the doubt, probably had good intentions, but this is another example of creating bad policy that only makes a situation worse.
Yeah. So as I mentioned, that did get shot down, and I kind of thought that it would. That's a wildly unpopular bill on both sides. So I can't imagine that, that would have worked real well in the favor of the Democrats. And so Newsom just rejected that, I think on the 6th, a few days ago. And this is basically the short version, or this is the version of what he had written in a letter. It says, to the members of the California State Assembly, I am returning Bill 1840 without my signature. This bill seeks to prohibit the disqualification of applicants from one of California's housing and home purchase assistance programs based solely on their immigration status. Given the finite funding available for such programs, eligibility must be carefully considered within the broader context of the annual state budget to ensure that we manage our resources effectively. For this reason, I am unable to sign this bill. Sincerely, Governor Gavin Newsom. And I think that's that to me is actually not too surprising because Newsom's really been trying to clean up his act. He's been trying to get his house in order because he has bigger political aspirations. And I don't know if they didn't tell him that, hey, man, we want you in 2028, but you got some problems there. You need to start cleaning shit up because some of you may recall he's been out doing work, rolling up his sleeves, putting on gloves, going out cleaning up homeless camps and stuff. He's trying to now correct the problem that he created and should have solved many years ago, but they invited these people in and now he's trying to rebrand his image. And so I don't know if this particular initiative that they threw out was in an effort to kind of give him a layup essentially, because it's kind of a no-brainer that he had to do this. You've got $70 billion budget deficits. How are you going to do this, man? It's not like you have a surplus. And so it's almost like they hey, Gavin, here's something else you can do that makes yourself look good. Or they just decided, as politicians normally do in this state, they just go on what they think they have the ability to do. They get elected and then they're going to just push their initiatives despite what anybody else thinks because they're not going to pay any political consequence for it. Right?
Mm-hmm.
You're going to have bills rammed through and there's going to be no recourse for that. And that happens in this state all the time. That happens in the federal government all the time. And so this might have just been them throwing that out there thinking, hey, maybe this will stick. And, Newsom shot it down on his own accord, or he was kind of thinking, hey, this will work to my advantage because obviously he had something in mind. It's not for the good of the people, right? It's for the good of Newsom.
Right. I would, if I were to guess, I would say that it was something thrown out just to kind of give him a leg up to look better.
Yeah. Yeah. I wouldn't put that past him. I mean, because again, they're not going to pay any political penalty for it. And it's going to make him look good because, oh, look, he's on the side of the people. And this is the right move for him to make. It's quite honestly the only move you should make. But anyhow, so cool.
Yeah, but I just think it's words. I don't think he's physically going to.
What do you mean?
Well, I mean, he didn't sign it.
Yes, he did. He didn't sign it. And that's the point. He vetoed the bill.
I understand that.
Yeah.
But as far as the full follow through, I don't know that Gavin Newsom's going to do that because I don't think he cares that much. I understand that he didn't sign it.
Right. That's the follow through right there. He has to sign the bill in order for the bill to become law. If he doesn't sign it, it's not law. So they can pass whatever they want in the legislature and he didn't sign it. So it's a done deal. Right.
Okay.
Yeah. So this is the last thing that I have for this evening, guys. And then we're going to get out of here because we're going to go and do some other things on the homestead and get ourselves, prepped up for what we need to do tomorrow. We are still recovering from our weekend trip and didn't get nearly enough recovery yet. We're still cleaning up and doing some things around here and trying to get some sleep. So, but this is a did you know, if you will. And those that have, I guess that are around our age are going to know exactly what this person was. It was Tattoo from Fantasy Island. And I did not know the circumstances of his demise. I did not know certain things about him, but this kind of goes into a little bit of that. And I just thought it would be a way to end tonight on a lighter note. Well, I guess it's not exactly a lighter note, but anyhow, roll the tape.
Did you know?
Villa Chase was born on April 23rd, 1943 in France. He's known for being an actor and an artist. His biggest role was in the TV show called Fantasy Island. His character was named Tattoo. He was on the show from 1977 to 1983. Who can forget him yelling, "Da plane, da plane"? He was a dwarf and he stood 3 feet 11 inches tall. Another big role he was in was the James Bond movie called The Man with the Golden Gun. Art was his escape from being bullied in school. He was also into photography. He moved to the US in 1964 and eventually he started acting. He sang a song called Why, released in 1980. He was fired from Fantasy Island after demanding to be paid as much as Ricardo Montalban. He became depressed, started drinking alcohol, and he had money problems. He had some health issues including an ulcer, chronic pain, and pneumonia. In 1985, he was given probation for illegally carrying a loaded weapon. He was married twice and had no children. He died in 1993 from a self-inflicted gunshot wound. He was 50 years old.
So I lied. I guess that's not exactly ending on a lighter note, but I did not realize the dude shot himself, and didn't realize he, had issues with, as he did. I thought he actually died kind of like Gary Coleman or Webster, because those dudes had some health problems, being little dwarf dudes, and they died from health complications. But he ended it all. But yeah, I guess that's ending on a little bit of a sadder note.
Yeah.
Right?
I am sorry for coughing in you guys' ear. I caught a cold from my beautiful grandchildren.
Yeah, that's what happens with the little ones, right? It's all good. It's family germs. We can handle it.
Yeah.
We can handle it. So cool. I think we're gonna get going, guys. And if you want to hear this rebroadcast, I'll put it up on the Spotify, so you can go there and listen without commercial interruption at Spotify.com, Porterhouse and Teal Live. And yeah, we hope you guys have a great week. And remember, homesteading is not harmful content. And go out there and be a little bit better today or tomorrow than you were today. How about that? We'll flip it around on you.
Absolutely. Good evening, folks.
Okay. We'll see you guys.